Okay. Good evening. My name is Rich Ognibene, and it is an honor to be here tonight as an educator, a colleague, a friend, and most importantly, as the son of Richard Ognibene Sr., who founded this august group many years ago. One could say that Dad's child from 1963 is hanging out with his child from 1971. And as your slightly older brother, I think we've aged quite well. But I digress. My dad was a prolific scholar. He was also kind, funny, and unfailingly generous. His first job was teaching social studies at John Marshall High School here in Rochester. But the bulk of his career was spent in education departments at Siena College, SUNY Geneseo, the College of St. Rose, and Seton Hall University. Dad used to joke that he was academically promiscuous, shamelessly hopping from institution to institution.
I gotta use that one.
But in reality, he went from being a teacher to professor to department chair to dean, and was on a path to become a college president until an illness with my mom changed that trajectory. Even in retirement, Dad continued to work as an adjunct and somehow found the time to publish 2 books, making his newly retired son look quite slothful by comparison. In my defense, I do the Wordle every day, but I digress yet again. Like most of you, a large part of Dad's work was preparing people to be teachers. And in broad strokes, that involves studying the how and the why of education. The how is associated with people like Benjamin Bloom and Howard Gardner and Madeline Hunter and Charlotte Danielson. And it focuses on the strategies and the technical skills needed to promote learning. The why is associated with philosophers and scholars and pundits across many centuries. And it focuses on our raison d'etre. What is the larger role of education beyond getting kids to pass state tests? The why has been and continues to be a subject of fierce public debate. Dad knew that the how and the why worked synergistically. A gifted violinist must be able to manipulate her instrument to get the right notes. But she must also know the history of the conductor, the intent of the music, and the larger role of violins in an orchestra. So too for gifted teachers. If we don't know the how, we struggle at our short-term goal of teaching content. If we don't know the why, we struggle at our long-term goal of helping kids self-actualize, producing good citizens, and achieving social justice. My dad spent 6 decades in the field of education. And although he was skilled at the how, morally, intellectually, and historically, he was passionate about the why. Thus his love of the New York State Foundations of Education Association and the scholarly people therein. I learned the why of education from Dad when I was a junior in college. The course, circa 1984, was called Philosophy of Education. And it would not be hyperbole to say that taking Dad's class was a life-changing event. We analyzed books like Teaching is a Subversive Activity by Neil Postman and Charles Weingartner, Summerhill by A.S. Neal, Freedom to Learn by Carl Rogers, Cultural Literacy by E.D. Hirsch. We compared pedagogical styles, we discussed historical movements, we examined models of human development, we studied issues of inequality. Dad was quietly brilliant at getting us to think about the larger role of education in society. That larger role, particularly as it relates to social justice, was so important to my father. Part of his passion for social justice came from life experience. Education helped Dad escape the poverty, both financial and emotional, of his childhood. Part of his passion for social justice came from our family. My mom, Elaine, was an English professor and a feminist. I am a science teacher and a gay rights activist. My brother Chris is a social studies teacher who teaches kids to speak truth to power. Through the prism of our careers, Dad saw that teachers can help fight oppression in all of its forms. Part of his passion for social justice came from his research, most notably his work on Jonathan Kozol and the horrific effects of segregated schools on our most vulnerable kids. Dad's strong belief that schools should be agents of social change is why this group was so important to him, and likewise so important to me. Without strong foundations of education, our world is a less equitable place. Without strong foundations of education, the foundations of society start to crumble. Dad spent the last 2 weeks of his life at St. Peter's Hospital in Albany. Because of COVID restrictions, we were unable to visit, save for one brief FaceTime when he was lucid enough to chat. It was, in a word, painful. During that challenging time, when Dad was dying, my family needed doctors and nurses who were more than technically proficient. We needed people who also understood the why of their profession. We needed people with compassion and humanity. We needed people who saw their patient as more than a series of test results. We needed people who understood the larger role of medicine in society. Fortunately for us, we found some. For those people and for their teachers, I am eternally grateful. Dad was professionally active right up until the end. As luck would have it, the last project he worked on was helping Shoggy and Tim to plan for this conference. Your group, your academic work, your friendships with Dad were an animating force in his life. Your kindness in allowing me to be here means more than words can say. Clearly, you understand the why of our profession. So on behalf of my father, and on behalf of students everywhere, I urge you to keep up the important work of the New York State Foundations of Education Association. We need teachers who know their content and can provide effective instruction. Those are important traits. But we also need teachers who are critical thinkers, teachers who will love their kids and foster human development, teachers who will advocate and agitate for the least among us because they have been taught the why of education. Our work toward that end will make the world a better place, and I can think of no greater legacy for my father or for the rest of us than that. Thank you.